These are the 17 most mysterious and paranormal devil fruits in One Piece. In this world, fictional fruit is magical. However, this is a subclass that takes things a step further into the unknown, and it allows us to discover some very disturbing truths about our fictional reality. And we're going to take our first step into the paranormal with the Kage no Mi, the shadow fruit put to use by the spooksome Gecko Moria, which allows him to conjure and manipulate shadows. And that might sound kind of underwhelming, but in the world of One Piece, shadows are a pretty big deal. In this world, shadows actually contain personalities of their own. So when Gecko Moria removes a person's shadow and inserts it into one of his zombies, he is creating new life commanded by the personality of the shadow. And it's also an incredibly big problem in this world if you lose your shadow, because then you, for reasons, are no longer able to exist in sunlight. If you touch the sunlight, you will burst into flames like a vampire. So we really want to keep our shadows where they are if possible. And I think the logic behind that is that if you're in the sun, it would be casting a shadow, and if you've got no shadow, you can't be in no sun, so you just sort of vanish from existence. Because the other truly bizarre and kind of grotesque thing about shadow manipulation is that in the One Piece world, it is an established law that the shadow must always perfectly represent the body casting it, which also works in reverse as well. Meaning that if Gecko Moria manipulates the shape of the shadow, then the body is forced to follow suit, so he can contort people into any shape he so desires, as he did with Oars after inserting Luffy's shadow. So it's a fruit that reveals three very paranormal things about this world. 1, shadows essentially have a life of their own. 2, if you don't have a shadow, you can't exist in light. And 3, your shadow must always be perfectly in concert no matter what shape you need to be in to make it happen. Meanwhile, our next fruit very casually confirms the existence of the human soul, and that is Brook's Yomi no Mi, the revive fruit. So this is a very unusual devil fruit in that it does nothing. Well, not nothing. I mean, after eating it, you lose the ability to swim, but other than that, nothing for a bit. Nothing right up until the moment you die. After death, this magical fruit kicks into action and gives the user control of their soul, allowing them to return to the plane of the living and repossess their body, essentially reviving them. And doing so, theoretically, instantly. I think that was the intended use of the fruit. So usually said revival would involve all of the skin and organs and the other stuff it is that we like. But in Brook's case, he died whilst lost in the Florian Triangle, in a fog so thick that it took his spirit a whole year to find his body, by which point it was nothing but bones and a very firmly rooted afro. And after hearing the story, Luffy simply told Brook, "Wow, you're dumb," like Zoro. But from here, this fruit has a whole suite of extended capabilities. Brook can separate his soul from his body at will, and even has some degree of access to elements of the underworld, confirming not only that there is an afterlife, but the afterlife we know of is more akin to what we would consider hell than heaven. Brook also has a natural advantage in soul combat, which surprisingly is a thing in One Piece, primarily thanks to the Soru no Mi, the soul fruit used by Emperor of the Sea Charlotte Lin, better known as Big Mom. And this devil fruit is actually quite similar to Moria's, just instead of shadows, Big Mom can manipulate souls. She can remove souls entirely, thus killing people, or more commonly what she does is break a person's soul into fragments and then goes on to insert those fragments into objects to create new living beings that she calls homies. It also gets a bit more disturbing than that, because, and stay with me here, Big Mom is capable of inserting fragments of her own soul into her own body, if that makes sense. If not, don't worry, it will. What she does is insert soul fragments into her own bones, essentially giving her bones independent life and allowing them to heal from injuries, as well as restructure her body in, I suppose, any way she sees fit. It gives me a very weird feeling every time I think about it, because I just don't want my insides to have their own independent consciousness. This sounds unpleasant. But aside from the standard devil fruit weaknesses, there is only one known counter to this ability, which is to simply not be afraid of the user. If you're not afraid of them, then they cannot manipulate your soul. But that's a lot easier said than done when you've got Charlotte Lin standing in front of you, threatening to gobble you down. It would certainly be much easier if she wasn't there at all, which could have been achieved if she'd eaten the Suke no Mi, the clear fruit, which gives its user the ability to turn invisible at will. This is one of the simplest devil fruits in all of One Piece. There really isn't a lot of depth and nuance to this effect, but it is one of the most powerful in the right hands. The Blackbeard pirates deliberately sought this devil fruit out to feed to Shiryu, which gave him the power to injure Garp the hero, an opponent who would be nigh on untouchable without invisibility. And Shiryu also isn't the only user of this fruit who's existed in the series. It was originally possessed by Absalom, who used it to spy on women in the bathroom. And I mean, actually, he did a bit more than just spy, but we don't need to go there. And it was coveted by Sanji, who wanted to use it to spy on women in the bathroom. But to add to that, it was created by author Eiichiro Oda, who stated that he would use it to spy on women in the bathroom. And you know what? You could also do the same with the non-canon Iro no Mi, the color fruit used by Psycho P, which gives him the ability to camouflage anything by spray painting it and essentially achieving an invisibility-like effect. He also has a very fun secondary power called Copy Paint, where he can give people the appearance of other people, so yet another sort of faux clone fruit to add to the clone pile of fruits. Except that it just doesn't work anywhere near as well, as you can see by these flawless copies of Zoro, Sanji, and Frankie. Very few people will be fooled by these disguises, but Luffy was one of them. But while we're here, we have another fruit to add to the pile of bathroom spying abilities, which is something that can also be achieved by Brook in his soul form actually, or ghosts in general, because ghosts exist as well. Perona's Horo Horo no Mi, the Holo Holo fruit, allows her to conjure and manipulate ghosts known as Hollows, which continue to bend the world of One Piece into rather uncomfortable directions because these Hollows exist in a separate plane of reality. They are completely intangible to mortal beings, however these Hollows can and will affect you. They can do this in a multitude of ways, but Perona mainly constructs Hollows who fly through their targets and leave them feeling depressed to the point of quitting the great game of life. However, this ability only works on those with high or even moderate levels of self-esteem, as when it was used on Usopp, his negativity actually ended up depressing the Hollows, thus making him their natural counter. The fruit is also very curious because it seems to give Perona the ability to astral project herself into the ghost plane, as well as quite literally float, as if she was a ghost herself in reality. I don't quite know how she does that. She's not astral projecting when she's doing that. It's just her. She floats. Good on her. Also, this video is brought to you by a paid partnership with BetterHelp, a platform designed to connect you with a licensed therapist trained to listen and provide you with helpful, unbiased advice. So therapy is something that everyone can definitely benefit from, and for me, I've always used it as a method of personal growth. There's just a lot of things that you and Google can't solve together, and you need that outside eye, a different perspective to better understand my own habits as well as develop healthier ones, which BetterHelp does very effectively, and it's incredibly easy to start. You just fill out a questionnaire and you'll be matched with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. And look, we live in a very on-demand world. A couple of days, that doesn't sound fast, but in the world of therapy, mate, it is a bullet train, because the reality of finding a therapist near me could take months, and that's if I'm lucky. But with over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp makes sure that the therapists on the platform are well qualified, and if you're matched with one that doesn't feel like the right fit, then no worries, that's very common, and you can easily switch to another therapist that you can really connect with. Because the whole idea of BetterHelp is to make the journey of starting therapy easier. And I found it to be an absolutely brilliant resource that caters to my personal lifestyle, which not a lot of things do. So if you think you might benefit from a therapy session, then click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/grandlinereview for a 10% discount on your first month of therapy. So give BetterHelp a go and see if it's the right fit for you. But for now, it's back to you. Me. There's still a lot that remains unexplained about devil fruits in general, and there's also groups of people in this world who don't even know what devil fruits are, such as Raizo, user of the Maki Maki no Mi, the Scroll fruit. However, to Raizo, it's known simply as the Scroll Jutsu, because he believes that it's his innate ninja mystical art. It allows Raizo to conjure and manipulate scrolls, with each of these scrolls acting as a pocket dimension containing whatever Raizo wants to store within them. But this really is one of those devil fruits that does come startlingly close to flat out magic, because Raizo can use these scrolls to manifest through magical effect anything that he believes is possible through ninjutsu. A great example of which is Raizo's clone jutsu, where drawings of him on the scrolls are brought to life to assist him in fight battling, but there really are no strictly defined limits to this devil fruit. It's criminally underexplored and has the potential to be one of the most broken in the entire series. There's a lot of question marks around it. In fact, a lot of the devil fruits on this list come with big question marks, but the biggest of all has to be Basil Hawkins' devil fruit, the Wara Wara no Mi, or straw fruit, which should be simple, but it is not that. It seems like a fairly basic paramecia. It allows Basil Hawkins to conjure and manipulate straw, but in addition to that, it also allows him an extended array of madness, such as creating straw voodoo dolls directly linked to the life force of others, allowing Hawkins to transfer damage intended for him to those others instead, as well as access to an entire deck of tarot cards that all have unique effects when played as if he was dueling in Yu-Gi-Oh! And the cards have very strange effects as well. For example, the Fool Reversed is the card of infighting and causes those linked to Hawkins to attack each other, all of which is given to him by the power of straw. Thematically, this is due to Hawkins' abilities being a reference to Waraningyo, which is the art of straw doll effigies in Japan. But this is one fruit that strays so far from the base ability that it's even suspected that Hawkins has separate voodoo and tarot powers of his own that he integrates with the straw abilities. But something that's much more well defined is one of, if not the rarest devil fruit in the world, the Toki Toki no Mi, the Time fruit, also known on Wano as the time ability. So this fruit isn't rare because of its type or anything. It's rare because once someone eats it, there is a very real chance that the world will just never see it again. Someone could use this devil fruit to just travel to the end of time. The Toki Toki no Mi allows its user, who is also conveniently named Toki, to travel forward in time up to a maximum of 20 years in a single jump. After that jump, the user can skip forward another 20 years, and I suppose on and on, onwards to the great heat death of the universe. And Amatsuki Toki was actually alive during the Void Century and has used this fruit to jump a total of 830 years into the future, hence the rarity, because that took the fruit out of global circulation for almost a full millennia. However, it very strictly cannot travel back in time. So the user of this fruit needs to be extremely careful because any travel decisions made are irreversible. One wrong move and you could all end up like Matthew McConaughey in Interstellar, you know the one. Or there are devil fruits that could leave you in a much worse situation, such as Vasco Shot's Gabu Gabu no Mi, the Glug Glug fruit, which turns its user into a quote, booze man, and is categorized as mysterious because we don't know almost anything about exactly what that means. In the series, what we've seen is Vasco Shot drinking the alcohols, then igniting and spitting it out to create fireballs and such, so it could be quite a few things. For one, it could be consumption related, sort of like Wapol's Baku Baku no Mi, which requires him to almost always be eating, and in this case, Vasco Shot may need to almost always be drinking and in a permanent state of intoxication, which I feel that he'd be quite okay with. And also like Wapol, anything that Vasco Shot consumes, he can rearrange within his insides and violently and or creatively excrete. Don't know for now, that's why it's a mystery fruit. But at least it has a name. A surprising amount of devil fruits in this series don't even have names yet. Like Onigumo's unnamed devil fruit that appears to be a Zoan type that allows him to transform into a spider and spider-human hybrid. But there is potential for it to be an ancient or even mythical Zoan as well. His name Onigumo does mean demon spider, but look, I doubt it. I think he's just a basic spider boy. And one of Whitebeard's New World captains, Apuada, has an unnamed Zoan type devil fruit that allows him to transform into a lovely caterpillar with a surprising amount of control as he can retain his human head in caterpillar form. That is a pretty big deal. With Zoan fruits, it is extremely difficult to master transforming or not transforming select body parts. All I know is that Apuada still looks like the very hungry caterpillar, and as a result, he's almost certainly still hungry. So perhaps we should fry up Baron Tamago, user of the Tamatama no Mi, the egg fruit, also known as the most confusing canonical Zoan to have ever existed. The entire concept of this devil fruit is a play on the chicken and egg dilemma, which came first, etc. We don't know. I mean, someone's gonna actually me in the comments now saying we do know, but then right after them, someone's gonna actually then saying no, we do know, but it's the other one. What have I done? I shouldn't have opened this discussion up. Back to fictional fruit. Every time that Tamago is injured to the point of death, he ends up cracking and evolving into the next cycle of one of three forms: an egg, a chick, and a rooster. And if the rooster is mortally wounded, then we go back to egg and start again. And it's almost like a fusion of Paramecia, Zoan, and Logia types. Paramecia because it's one of those weird powers, Zoans for obvious reasons, but also Logia in the in-between phases because Tamago becomes an unkillable goo on the floor, and it's unclear how one could possibly deal with Tamago for good without drowning or I guess seasoning him into oblivion. It's definitely a weird fruit, but the non-canon realm gets even more mysterious. The biggest non-canon mystery Zoan devil fruit is All Hunt Ground's unknown fruits that only affects his left arm, at least only currently. It's suspected that his devil fruit is so powerful that All Hunt Ground has only unlocked a mere portion of its use. Sort of like the Zoan fruit equivalent of Exodia. All Hunt Ground has only drawn the left arm of the Forbidden One, and once he has all 5 pieces, what will emerge is one of the most overpowered and unstoppable beasts in all of One Piece. He also has a lot of trouble even controlling that single arm, so the theory is pretty solid. Unfortunately, it'll never be confirmed one way or the other because he's the throwaway filler character. Something which many people believe also applies to Foxy, however he is very canon, as is his devil fruit, the Noro Noro no Mi, the slow fruit, which rejects the concept of science and substitutes its own reality by conjuring what's known as Noroma photons, which will slow down anything they come into contact with by 30 seconds. 30 seconds is a long time. So long that if this fruit were in the hands of anyone but Foxy, then they would be the Pirate King right now. These beams are ridiculously powerful, and Foxy can even fashion them into objects like his beam sword. And in general, the world is extremely lucky that this recipe for global domination was discovered in the very mediocre kitchen of Foxy. And again, I suppose that's the grand plan of fate, because oftentimes devil fruits are not handed out randomly. They go where they're needed. And that is the case for the Inu Inu no Mi model Jackal and the Tori Tori no Mi model Falcon. They translate as Dog Dog fruit model Jackal or Mutt Mutt fruit in the Viz translation, mostly thanks to the influence of 4Kids, and the Bird Bird fruit model Yellow Falcon, which is the tweet fruit in Viz, again thanks to 4Kids, and these two seem like fairly basic Zoan devil fruits. However, they are anything but. The Jackal and the Falcon are the two traditional guardian deities of Alabasta, and these two powers form a very rich aspect of history and spirituality of the nation, with it even being suspected that Pell survived Crocodile's bomb because of this status as a guardian deity, and because he's not just a basic stock standard Zoan fruit. They could be secret mythical Zoans, and look, we'd never know, because that does happen apparently. There is now precedent for that. But those are the 17 most mysterious and paranormal devil fruits in all of One Piece.